Have you ever, like, found yourself just staring at your wrist, checking your smartwatch to see if your REM sleep was optimally deep?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Right. And then while you're doing that, you're simultaneously fantasizing about throwing that exact same piece of hardware along with, your smartphone and your laptop just straight into the nearest lake so you can go live in a cabin in the woods.
Yeah, the classic digital detox
Yeah,
fantasy.
exactly. I mean, we all feel this incredibly relatable modern dilemma. We're just completely torn between wanting to um, optimize our lives with the absolute latest biometric tech and feeling this really deep primal urge to just abandon all the screens and return to our roots.
Well, the funny thing is, if you act on either of those impulses, you are probably walking straight into a trap.
Wait, really? A trap?
Yeah, I mean, that tug of war between upgrading our humanity and trying to just, strip away the modern world entirely is basically the defining tension of our era. But both of those sides offer a fundamentally incomplete picture of how to actually exist in the world.
Which brings us perfectly to the source material for today's deep dive. We're looking at a set of excerpts from this really fascinating philosophical text. It's called Coherent Living: Beyond Transhumanism and the Natural Body.
It's a fantastic read, very dense, but very rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission today for this deep dive is to explore these two warring cultural impulses. On one side, you have the urge to engineer our way out of human limitation,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And then on the other, the urge to completely reject intervention and just let biology dictate our reality. But we aren't just going to watch these two ideologies fight it out.
No, we're looking for a solution here.
Exactly. We are going to uncover what the author calls a radical third position, which is this framework for navigating modern existence without, losing your mind or your humanity in the process.
But to get there, we really need to start by understanding the two main maps that society currently offers us.
Okay, let's unpack this. What's the first map?
So the author frames these two dominant cultural forces not as absolute truths, right, but simply as maps we use to try and navigate life. And the first map is transhumanism.
Okay, the tech optimists.
Yeah, exactly. You can think of the people holding this map as the upgraders. At its absolute core, transhumanism views the human being as, well, essentially a rough draft.
A rough draft, like we're unfinished.
Precisely. It is deeply rooted in Enlightenment rationalism and what the text calls modern Silicon Valley eschatology.
Okay, let me stop you right there, because eschatology is a theological term, right?
It is, yeah.
It's like the study of the end of the world, final judgment, the ultimate destiny of humanity. So are you saying the tech industry treats, like, microchips and software updates like a literal religion that's going to save our souls?
That is precisely what the text is arguing. I mean, historically, eschatology was about waiting for divine intervention to rescue humanity from the messiness of the world,
Right,
right?
like salvation from above.
Exactly. And Silicon Valley eschatology essentially just swaps out divine intervention for technological intervention.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the underlying belief is that biological evolution basically left the job unfinished. We are this flawed, decaying product. Therefore, it is our moral imperative to complete the evolutionary process.
Using like genetic modification, AI and all that.
Exactly, cognitive enhancement, artificial intelligence. In this worldview, suffering isn't an inherent part of the human condition. It's simply an engineering problem that hasn't been solved yet.
That is such a wild way to look at it.
It gets wilder. In this view, death is not a natural conclusion. Death is literally viewed as a bug in the code.
A bug in the code. It makes me think of how we treat our consumer electronics. Transhumanism seems to treat the biological body exactly like a smartphone.
That's a great analogy.
Like you are just a consciousness, which is the software trapped inside this rapidly degrading meat suit, the hardware. And if you don't like your processing speed, you just buy an upgrade. The ultimate goal is escaping what the text calls the meat of the human situation. Entropy, aging, physical vulnerability.
Which naturally brings us to the direct counter movement. The second map, natural humanism.
A cabin in the woods, folks.
Exactly. The rewilders. This lineage runs through philosophers like Rousseau and relies heavily on concepts like deep ecology and modern somatic therapies.
Okay, let's clarify those terms for anyone who isn't steeped in, like, environmental philosophy. Deep ecology is the idea that the natural world has intrinsic value, completely independent of its usefulness to humans, right?
Yes, that it has a right to exist just for its own sake.
Got it. And somatic therapies are those psychological practices that focus on the physical body, like how trauma or emotion is physically stored in our nervous system.
Exactly. So if transhumanism claims we haven't finished evolving, natural humanism claims we haven't failed to evolve at all. We have simply forgotten what we are.
Oh, I like that. We forgot.
Right. The body is not a clockwork machine to be hacked. It is this profound living intelligence. In this map, the Earth isn't some dead resource waiting to be mined for batteries.
They get a community.
Exactly, a community we are alienated from. So natural humanism asks us to stop constantly overriding our biology, to, listen to a symptom before we try to redesign the system.
Yeah, like to actually feel the biological reality of grief before we immediately try to just medicate it into submission.
What's fascinating here is that if we look closely at both of these movements, they are clearly driven by deeply recognizable, well-intentioned human desires.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the upgraders just want to eliminate suffering,
Right.
and the rewilders just want to find a sense of true belonging. Neither of those goals is malicious in any way.
No, not at all. The problem isn't the direction these philosophies are pointing. The problem arises when these maps are taken to their absolute extreme.
Because they become rigid.
Exactly. Both movements contain the shadow of the other because both of them eventually fall into the trap of purity.
Okay, wait. I am struggling to see how, like, planting a garden, eating organic food, and trying to be in tune with your nervous system could ever be a trap.
It sounds totally harmless, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have to defend the rewilders here.
Yeah.
On paper, it feels objectively safer and more grounded to say, let's return to nature, than it does to say, let's upload our consciousness into a server farm so we never feel sad again.
Sure.
So how does wanting to be natural turn into a dangerous thing? Is it really just as flawed?
It's a fair question and a fair defense, but the text reveals a very specific dark side to the natural map.
Okay, what is it?
When natural humanism hardens into an extreme ideology, it begins to romanticize suffering as something quote-unquote authentic, while viewing any kind of technological progress or medical intervention as a corruption of purity.
Oh, I see.
Crucially, it becomes a gatekeeping myth. The concept of what is natural is frequently weaponized to dictate which bodies are acceptable and which are flawed.
Okay, walk me through how that actually plays out in reality. Like, how does nature become a weapon?
Well, the author points out that this ideology is often used against anyone whose body doesn't fit the default template of health or biological typicality.
Like who?
It can be directed at transgender individuals seeking gender-affirming care, or disabled people relying on prosthetics. It can target neurodivergent people using medication, or really anyone with a chronic illness who requires medical technology just to survive.
What? Oh.
Right? The extreme natural humanist map frames their need for intervention as a betrayal of nature. So this beautiful philosophy of belonging suddenly draws this really rigid boundary line that actively excludes anyone who needs a tool to be whole.
Wow, yeah, I see that now.
Yeah.
The desire for connection morphs into this, like, exclusive club with incredibly strict biological entry requirements.
Exactly.
If you need a pacemaker, you are suddenly viewed as alienated from the earth. That is a massive blind spot for the rewilder mentality.
It is. But on the flip side, we also have to look at the extreme shadow of the upgraders.
Right, what happens when they win?
Exactly. What happens when transhumanism actually succeeds? What happens when you manage to optimize away all physical and emotional suffering?
You essentially become like a smooth, frictionless sphere.
A frictionless sphere. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you never ache and you never forget anything because it's all perfectly backed up to a cloud drive, you lose the entire texture of life.
And the text argues that a being who has eliminated all suffering isn't actually more human. They're entirely less present.
Because there's no struggle?
Right. Friction is required for traction. If you have no friction, you can't grip the reality of life. The aspiration to transcend the physical body accidentally becomes a total war on the body.
You just detach completely.
You become entirely alienated from your own existence because the very limitations that make transcending meaningful have been erased.
So if both of these philosophies completely fall apart at the extremes and end up causing the very alienation they are trying to solve, then the core issue isn't the ideas themselves.
No, it's how we're using them.
Right. The problem is how human beings are adopting them. We are mistaking the map for the territory.
Yes, exactly.
The map is the shiny ideology you read in a book. But the territory is you, a living, breathing person just trying to navigate a messy Tuesday with incomplete information.
And this brings the text to one of its most vital distinctions. It's the massive gap between knowing the map and actually walking the territory.
Right.
The author categorizes this as the difference between living wisdom and performed knowing. Living wisdom is earned. It is deeply embodied, highly contextual knowledge.
The book uses that really great example of a person working with clay, right?
Yes, the potter.
Yeah, living wisdom is the intelligence of a hand that has spent 10 years learning how the clay reacts to moisture and pressure. It's, it's the deep structural understanding of hunger that only comes from actually starving. It is what the body knows through direct, undeniable experience.
While performed knowing is the pretense of that wisdom, it is wearing the costume of understanding without ever having done the dirty, painful work of experiencing it.
And it feels like our modern culture is absolutely saturated in performed knowing.
Oh, completely overflowing with it.
Why is performed knowing the default now, though? It seems like everywhere you look, someone is offering a life hack for enlightenment.
Whoa, why do you think that is?
I think it's because the internet economy completely rewards the aesthetic of wisdom over the actual friction of acquiring it.
Oh, absolutely.
We can instantly download the vocabulary of healing, which allows us to completely bypass the biological work of actually feeling anything.
Spot on. And the author provides some incredibly sharp, very recognizable examples of how this manifests.
Oh yeah, the examples were brutal.
Right, because transhumanism often produces performed knowing at scale through technology. Think of an algorithm designed by a tech company.
Okay.
It can perfectly model human behavior, it can predict our purchasing habits, and mimic human conversation beautifully, but fundamentally it has zero understanding of human longing.
Right. It knows the data, but it doesn't know the feeling.
Exactly, and natural humanism produces this performed knowing, too.
Oh yeah. The text talks about the wellness influencer, the one who has memorized the entire clinical vocabulary of the nervous system, who posts constantly about somatic grounding, but who functionally cannot even feel their own feet on the floor when a camera isn't pointed at them.
It's a performance.
Or the spiritual teacher who preaches radical surrender to the universe from a stage, but behind the scenes, aggressively micromanages every single variable of their environment.
So what does this all mean? The question the author is throwing directly at you, the listener, isn't whether you've acquired the right information or read the correct articles or downloaded the best meditation app.
Right, it's not a quiz.
No, the question is, did that knowledge actually change you? Do you know it in your bones, in your daily decisions, in how you treat the barista making your coffee? Or are you just carrying that knowledge around as an identity?
As a credential. So, if performed knowing is the disease of our modern age, how do we actually cure it? How do we take our completely valid desire to improve ourselves and merge it with our equally valid desire to be grounded in reality?
The text calls the framework for this coherent living.
Okay, coherent living.
Yeah, and coherence isn't a destination you arrive at. It's an ongoing practice of discernment. Coherence happens when what you feel, what you say, and what you do are all forced into an honest conversation with each other.
Okay.
And the very first tenet of this practice is remarkably simple, yet almost impossible for modern people to do. Start with what is actually here.
Meaning, before you immediately reach for a pharmaceutical focus drug to optimize your workflow,
Right.
and before you reach for a natural herbal tincture to forcibly calm your anxiety, you have to just stop. You have to pause and actually listen to what the body is currently transmitting.
Yes, because maybe your inability to focus isn't a problem to be hacked. Maybe it's a signal that you are exhausted and just need to sleep.
The situation you are in is always trying to communicate with you.
Always. But we are usually too busy trying to force our map onto the situation to notice the territory.
We're ignoring the reality right in front of us.
Which leads to the second tenet. This introduces a critical test for how we engage with any intervention, whether it's technology, medicine, or ancient tradition. It is the distinction between refinement and replacement.
I want to make this concrete because this is a test you can apply to literally anything in your life.
Yeah, let's break it down.
The question is, does a tool help you fully become what you already are? That is refinement. Or does the tool substitute or bypass your genuine life? That is replacement.
Let's use a common scenario.
Yeah, let's look at sleep. If you use a low dose of melatonin to gently shift your circadian rhythm back on track after traveling across time zones, that is refinement. You are just assisting a biological process that already exists.
But if you refuse to stop drinking highly caffeinated energy drinks at 9 o'clock at night,
Oh, guilty.
and then you use heavy synthetic sedatives to knock yourself unconscious because you refuse to alter your lifestyle, well, that is replacement.
You're just masking the problem.
You are attempting to bypass the biological reality of your choices. It applies to mindfulness, too. Does a meditation practice help you engage with your messy life more fully? Or are you using it to dissociate and escape having to deal with your messy life?
Oh, that's good. It's like wearing glasses.
How do you mean?
Well, glasses are an intervention. They're a piece of technology. But they don't replace the eye. They simply bend the light so the biological eye can do exactly what it evolved to do. That's refinement.
I love that.
But like putting on a virtual reality headset and completely ignoring the room you're sitting in, that is replacement.
That is a highly effective way to frame it. And it ties directly into the text's tenet regarding nature, which is use the natural as wisdom, not law.
Wisdom, not law.
Right. Nature is not a strict rule book that you have to blindly obey, where any deviation is a sin. Nature is a teacher.
And when you have a profound teacher, you listen to them, you study their methods, but you don't mindlessly mimic them without understanding the underlying mechanics, right?
Exactly. You integrate the lesson into your own context.
So if we pull all of these practices together, where does it leave us?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it leads us toward what the text identifies as the ultimate third position, which it calls integral living or coherent belonging.
Coherent belonging.
Yes. From this vantage point, nothing in the human situation is fundamentally alien. The smartphone, the soil, the grief, the ambition, the decay of the body, the expansive reach of the mind, it all belongs to the total picture of what we are.
Which completely dissolves the war between the upgraders and the rewilders.
It renders the entire fight obsolete. Because from the perspective of coherent belonging, technological enhancement isn't the opposite of nature.
It's part of it.
Yes. Enhancement is just nature experimenting with itself, using the human mind as the vehicle, the exact same way it has always experimented.
And returning to our roots isn't the opposite of progress either. It is simply intelligence looping back to pick up something really vital that got dropped in the rush forward.
Exactly.
So we've gone from the urge to engineer ourselves into cyborgs, to the urge to run away into the forest, and finally arrived at this third position of coherent living. And the brilliance of this synthesis is that coherence doesn't demand that you erase your contradictions.
No, it demands the exact opposite. It requires you to actively hold the tension between them.
You do not have to choose between your love of life, which makes you want to extend it, optimize it, and protect it with technology, and your deep reverence for life, which makes you want to slow down, feel your feet on the ground, and fully inhabit your biological limits.
Right. You can hold both.
Coherence simply means keeping those two very real, very human impulses in an honest, ongoing dialogue.
The entire practice is to resist the deep, comforting seduction of adopting a fixed position, to remain vulnerable and available to what the specific moment in front of you actually requires.
But to achieve that, the author presents one final, really lingering challenge in the closing notes of the text. And it revolves around the concept of epistemic honesty.
Yes, this is a crucial point.
The author argues that the deepest danger in our lives isn't technology, and it isn't nature. The deepest danger is acting from a place of pretended knowing.
And we have to be clear here. Pretending to know is very different from simple ignorance.
Right. Simple ignorance is just not having the data yet.
Exactly. Pretending to know is the active performance of absolute certainty about things you have not yet actually lived.
It's the transhumanist tech CEO who has never felt genuine, inescapable physical agony telling someone with a chronic pain condition that they just need a better optimization protocol.
Right. Or it is the natural humanist who has never faced a life-threatening illness without an herbal remedy, insisting that all modern surgical medicine is a betrayal of the earth.
It happens anywhere. A map is declared superior to the messy reality of the territory. So the thought I want to leave you with today is this. Where in your own life are you suffering from pretended knowing?
It's a tough question. It really is. Where are you performing certainty about things you haven't actually lived yet? Because the antidote to this modern dilemma isn't just to be more humble. It is to be radically honest about what you have actually earned through living versus what you've just adopted, because it sounds smart, looks good on an internet profile, or gives you a rigid position to hide behind.
Ultimately, our goal in encountering any of this information is not to become the explainer of existence.
No.
Our goal is to remain a student of it, to keep living, keep feeling the friction, and keep letting your internal maps update based on reality.
Which means maybe you don't need to throw your smartwatch in the lake just yet. Keep living, keep learning, and keep holding that tension. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.